Okay, so it is time to get the papers out of this mini project I have been working on. I'm just using a small crochet hook to loosen up the paper from the fabric. I'm trying to be careful because you don't want to cause harm to any of your stitching. And I decided with this project, I was going to go ahead and remove the pieces from the edges as well. So my first mini quilt, I kept the edge pieces in and squared based on that. I saw another creator doing that, a quilter, and I thought that was cool, but this time I took mine out. So now I have my cutting mat, and I need to get a bigger cutting mat, but this will do for now. And I'm just checking to make sure all of the pieces are out. I missed one. So I'm going to get that piece out here before we get ready to start squaring up this top. And I got it. And these pieces can be reused. I like to use them at least both sides before they're trash. So here I am getting my top squared. And this is just very nerve-wracking to me. Oh, yeah, so but before I squared the top, I wanted to just measure out the back piece as well and just get an idea for how much I was going to need, just a rough estimate, because again, right now I'm just focused on the top. So this is me just kind of getting a rough estimate of how much of this backing I'm going to actually need, and then I'm going to start cutting it. And I have a way to go in learning how to use my cutters and keep a straight line and cut all the way through the fabric. So you'll just have to bear with me with that. I also feel like I need to finally get off the floor. Like I want to start doing this process of basting and squaring on a table, sitting up higher, because quite frankly, the floor just feels very uncomfortable at this point. But for this project, we're on the floor. I really am not a huge fan of this type of ruler for this cutting. I think I need just a regular quilting ruler that doesn't have a cutter on the edge, because I'm obviously not even using the cutter there. I'm using my rotary cutter instead. And so I'm probably going to give this ruler away to someone who can make better use of it. All right, so the backing is cut. And then I still have the front here. Now I have my batting. I just bought a big roll of 100% cotton batting, and I'm just laying that out and figuring out how much of that batting I'm going to need. And I'm using my backing to kind of help me with that, because I say always, like I've been doing this for a long time. I was my first project, I made sure I had extra backing and batting, and I put my quilt top on top of, I had the whole thing pinned together, and then before I did my binding, that's when I cut the batting and the backing down to size. So I always give myself a little extra room there. So that's all I'm doing here, is just kind of basing how much batting I need off of the backing, knowing that I'll have extra batting and backing. I hope that makes sense. And I just flip those over. And I know for a fact that after I square this top here, I will have plenty of batting and plenty of backing. I don't have an ironing board yet, and so I was trying to figure out the safest way to iron. And then I realized that this was too soft to iron on. I've got a clapper. Several times I'm going to forget to use it, but I do have it. And I think I just settled on laying, I had some extra yardage of this purple, so I decided to just lay it down and iron. I'm not really sure if people iron their EPP projects or not, but it seemed like the right thing to do. I didn't with my first mini quilt, but I decided to give it a try. With these little projects, I'm really just experimenting on different techniques, or with different techniques. I watch different videos that other quilters put out, and then I'm just trying some things on my own and seeing if that works for me and if I like the look of it. And right now, I think I was just waiting for the iron to get hot enough to use. I also bought this pressing cloth. I don't know if people I feel like some people use it, some people don't. So I gave it a try. I think my only issue with it was I felt like I couldn't quite see the seams. And then I've also watched several videos where some people say to just place the iron down and then pick it up and move it, versus actually moving the iron around on the fabric. I guess maybe it can stretch the fabric. I'm going to have to lean into more conversations about how to appropriately apply heat to your fabric. So I was just kind of going off of vibes here and doing whatever I thought was the right thing to do in the moment, especially on these edges, because I knew I was going to cut the edges and I wanted to make sure I could make that process as easy as possible. So to me, it seemed like that fabric needed to be as flat as possible on the edge. And I stopped using the pressing cloth because I felt like I really could not see my seams, and I needed to see them in order to press them appropriately. And as always, please feel free to leave any comments, suggestions, thoughts, maybe what you do, and what maybe I can do to help improve this process, for sure. You see me use the crochet hook because I was trying to make the seams flat and I didn't want to stick my finger in there and get burned. So I was just using the hook to help me iron down those seams. Flipped it over to see what it looked like on the front. And I felt more comfortable using the pressing cloth here because I felt more comfortable with the pressing job I'd done. Then I realized I hadn't been using the clapper at all. So I flipped it back over again and tried a few seams with the clapper. All right, so the moment of truth. This is super stressful, trying to get the hexagons even on the edge here so that I can make the cuts. And I don't know why, but I was just struggling to cut. I think some of it is just my positioning too, which is why I want to get off the floor so I can kind of get my body over the fabric and apply a better pressure weight on my hand when I'm cutting. Again, I'm trying to find a good point to match up the hexagons, the mat, my ruler to get a straight cut. The whole time I'm cutting this project, I'm also thinking about the seam allowance I'm going to ultimately need for my binding. And so I still think that there are some adjustments I'm going to have to make after I'm done actually quilting this project. But for right now, I think what I'm doing is good enough. And if it's not, then that was the point of experimenting and learning. Okay, that was a nice cut. All right, I have one more side here. And finally square at the top. And now I'm going to make my quilt sandwich. And I am going to use pins, little curved safety pins, to keep it all together. I like using these for a small project like this too, because I have my little ones around and I feel better using these pens that have little covers on the tip. I'm not really sure how heavily I should pin this. I just know I don't want a lot of movement while I'm hand quilting this piece, so I'm going to use a lot. And maybe in time I'll use a little bit less. But for now, we're gonna pin this sucker heavily. And then I thought I was gonna make a little quilt stencil and maybe stencil around, maybe quilt around that stencil. I'll see. I thought it was a cool little thing to do, so I may not use that. Bye.